Well, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, which is on Better BI, including a preview of the SAP BI 4.3 release that comes out later this year. And we'll also be showing you how to migrate successfully to the new release so your organization can benefit from it. Today's webinar has been organized by Red Olive and Infosol. My name's Jefferson Lynch. I'm the CEO at Red Olive, and I'll be your host today, so welcome. Have the next slide, please. Great. Well, I'm delighted to be joined by today's presenters, so let me introduce them to you now. First up will be our own David Searro, who's so convinced that you'll want to adopt the new SAP BI release that in a moment he's going to outline to you how Red Olive can easily help you to adopt it and make it work for your organization. So David's up first. And then he'll hand over to Paul Grill, who's CEO of Infosol. We partner with Paul and his team at Infosol because we think they have a really compelling proposition both for SAP BI customers who want to distribute information very widely in a controlled way, and also for organizations who use multiple BI tools. So we'll be welcoming Paul too. So for example, if your organization uses Tableau, they can't currently benefit from the investment you have in your business objects universe semantic layer, and Infosol's tools can help address that. So Paul will be explaining more about that. We'll then be hearing from Hazel Raison, who joins us from the major international delivery company, Hermes. So welcome to Hazel. Hazel's the SAP BI lead for Hermes, who also use Infosol to get the right information to their many thousands of employees. And many of those are on mobile. Hazel will be telling us about her experience of using SAP BI and Infoburst for real. And after Hazel, next up will be Gregory Botticchio, who's from SAP. And now one of the beauties of running a webinar is that people can both listen and also present from anywhere in the world. So Gregory's presenting today from Paris. So welcome to Gregory too. And that's where SAP's BI Center is. Gregory's a SAP BI product manager, and we're very pleased to have him with us this afternoon. We're looking forward to hearing from him. So this is the very experienced team that we've got assembled for the session today, and do feel free to make good use of them. There's a lot of knowledge around the table, and what I'd like to say is you'll be able to raise questions by typing them in as we go, and the way we plan to handle the questions is to raise them more or less as we go. So I'll be looking out for questions coming in, and then when we hit what I think is a good spot to raise that question with the presenter, so we don't really break their flow in the middle of a slide, for example, then I'll do that on your behalf. So please do keep questions coming in. If there's one or two that are very broad, then I'll probably keep those until the end. Have the next slide, please. Great, thanks. So just very briefly, for anyone who's not heard, who are we, who are Red Olive? We're an analytics and data management specialist. Really, in one sentence, we aim to help our clients extract value from their data. We work across lots of different sectors. Really, we offer three main capabilities. The first one is around data visualization, and that's where we're focusing this afternoon. And the two other main areas that we work in are data science, so predictive modeling, that kind of area, and then also data engineering, so designing and building data warehouses, data lakes, data marts, call them what you like, but big data repositories. And we offer a service which goes anything from initial assessment through to design, build, running systems. We also develop data strategies for organizations. And there's a few samples of those shown down there on the right-hand side. So really, without further ado, what I'll do now is hand over to my colleague, David. So David.
Thank you, Jefferson. Good afternoon, everyone, depending on which time zone you're in. So I'm David Searro, and I'll be talking to you about some of the elements that we come across when we're doing our migrations. So first of all, some of the problems that the kind of main problems we're kind of facing. Generally, tends to be where the product is currently out of support. But then the other issue tends generally to be that some of the new functions and features offered by BI 4.3, which will be showed later, and actually kind of leveraging the value of some of these new functions and features. And that's kind of the key thing why people are actually migrating at the moment. Many businesses currently that we're talking to are already considering when they'll move to the next version. But currently it's not without its issues, and generally around what we'll be talking about is the kind of things to keep in mind once we're doing that. Depending on the size of the organization, migration could take a large amount of time, and there are lots of, let's just call it nuances that come in as part of this process. And some of them can be very challenging for organizations. So what we're supposed aiming to do as part of this whole element to kind of show you step-by-step processes that make life much easier. We have developed a rapid migration methodology, I would say, and I guess the key thing here is not just about speed, but it's almost it's kind of a governed and a pain-free process. What we tend to do is work a lot in collaboration, which means that the customer doesn't actually get effectively a black box migration, but they're part of that process. So it makes the whole sort of like delivery element of that very, very simple. Okay. Right. So first I'd like to talk about some of the main steps that we cover in our migration. So the first bit obviously is planning. Now, I know a lot of people, and I've done this for a few years now, when they look at the plan element, people always look at the kind of server and look at some of the content, and that's pretty much it. What we're really talking about here is kind of planning the migration as an actual project, so people actually understand what the dependencies are, as well as all the moving parts within the project. And this comes from different projects going in flight, people moving to a sort of like new Microsoft suite, and effectively joining all those elements together as part of the plan. So we tend to look at where we are in terms of content and universes and security, but we also look at what are the other underlying effects that are happening. For example, source system changes, data warehouse changes from on-prem to cloud, and really encompassing all of that in to kind of make sure that we're capturing all the different elements. As you can see from the visual, we tend to split the roles in where customers want to get involved, and these boxes sometimes are grey and red, sometimes are red and grey, depending on what sort of effort the actual customer wants to get involved in. So obviously we install the software where required, make sure there's the lifecycle management and governance that's part of this process, but then also look at a more of a rationalization migration plan as well. The next step is testing a lot of this element, and as you all know, and I'm sure, in fact, I can see a few names on the screen here. I've worked with a lot of you in the past, and I think testing tends to be how long is a piece of string, based on universes and reports. And I would say that coming up with a very good testing strategy, which is what we also assist and help with, to actually make sure that's part of the plan, is key for the migration actually working effectively. I've put training for key users because one of the key things is that with an onset of a lot of the new elements that you're going to see from Gregory as well, that there's look and feel changes, but there's also a lot of nice functional changes, and it's kind of like where the effort really goes back to the key users to make sure that they're getting the most for what they are effectively trying to do. And then we tend to do some of those fixes where it makes sense, but more of an internal workshop. I always think that people look at migrations as a very simple thing, but I think it's also a good opportunity to sell back to your community the value of BI and reporting and all the other elements that now come as part of this process, and actually follow an actual proper go-live process. So where we've done this a few times, this process seems to have worked extremely well, and really speaking, getting a lot of business buy-in back into the tool that sometimes people have kind of forgotten, and it's just there in the ether. But also because of the new set of tools that get looped in with the licensing model, depending on which license you've gone for, it's a good way to resell it back to your organization. Okay, so talking a bit more about some of the stuff we've already talked about. We talk about defining the scope, but effectively what we're doing is coming up with a business case. It's not just about effectively installing and reconfiguring and migrating, but also making sure that as part of the whole new tool set, there's a new sort of business case that comes with it in terms of how to use the software. As well as some of the nice features. So for example, some of the Fiori interface that you're going to see later on, that seems to have a huge bind with a lot of business users, but it's also moving to executive level teams and senior management. And that's really just moving up that business objects to that next top table. That's really important. So the business case, what we tend to do as part of the business case, we come up with a costing, but not just for a simple migration, but also effectively the whole platform. And that's whether that's on-premise or cloud. Rationalization of content, I'm sure, and just looking at some of the more names I've joined in, I've worked with a few of you in the past where the content tends to be in the thousands of reports and multiple universes. But as we all know, if you've not migrated for a while, most of these tend to be sort of redundant, or that there be multiple versions of the same scenario. What we always say is make sure that this content is, I suppose, curated correctly before it's been migrated. And we found that to have a real win back in businesses as well, because it's kind of being more laser focused in terms of what we're trying to migrate. Design of the architecture. I think a lot of people look at this and sometimes say, right, we'll just do a standalone exactly what we've got, but it's a great opportunity, especially with the new tool sets, to even look at the architecture that sits on, but also look at some of the new sources that can now come in, with the universes now opened up to a plethora of streaming sources as well. There's an amazing amount of weather data and sentiment analysis that you can now capture very, very simply. And I think the whole design of the gateway of the architecture is extremely important as well as is the security. A few people in the past have used, I'm guessing, functional and content groups. With the new functions added to the element, that adds so much more, as well as things like scheduling. So a bit more on that from Paul and Hazel later as well. The design of the security I've talked about slightly. I think this is quite clear that this, based on GDPR, various other things happening in the space, this becomes a lot more prevalent in terms of what we're doing at the moment. And 4.3 does offer a lot of nice features to make sure you can ring fence a lot of these things to actually really get the best out of the system as well. So we talked about migration of content. The key thing here is don't do a big bang one, because one, you're probably not test half fit. So look at rationalization, take it in steps, take it in chunks. Where we've found a lot of success is where we've broken it up by different departments. So finance, HR, operations, and actually migrate that content more step by step rather than a big bang, because you're actually getting the users to test, and it becomes a more agile, iterative migration rather than a pure waterfall approach. And that's had a lot of wins in quite a few organizations we're at the minute. Test. There's only so many times I can say that, but for me, where we're looking at testing, people Look at left hand, right hand, so the old version, the new version, it looks about the same. What we've started doing is actually looking at the SQL, looking at the basically how long queries take, looking at performance uplifts as well. And I think that also has been quite interesting, because there have been cases where things have migrated, calculation engines have changed, and performance has dropped. So at first sight, it looks very, very similar. But I think once performance drops and you lose some sort of value in terms of what you're trying to show, especially when it comes to some of the dashboards, you're definitely losing a lot of people as part of that. So do test, do come up with a test plan where and actually more of a call off on the test plan. And people sometimes find this very daunting, because they go, wow, we've got about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 reports, and to test that is very daunting. But I think once we followed all the steps, we kind of find through rationalization and testing, this is not as big a task as people think it is, and it works extremely well and extremely fast as well. I've talked a bit about training key users, and I'm not talking about as almost like the people who just look at portal, the actual portal, and like InfoView and hit refresh. I'm talking more of the super users here, because I think a lot of the functions and features, for people to kind of use it, you really have to show it to them, and not see it as more just an upgrade, but more of a migration. I've always used these phrases because I've always felt people have assumed you can upgrade to the next version, but I think a migration is all about getting real value from your data, and therefore using some of the new features to its best element to kind of get the most out of it. Finally, go live. So what we started doing with go live with our customers is kind of making it as a go live event, making it so it's not just the technology is migrated and they've got the same reports, but almost like a roadshow where we're kind of getting groups of people, say finance, operations, as an example, and kind of really sell them the whole go live experience by showing them what's new in the product, what people can do. And I think this is where your own staff comes into play, because you guys are effectively the internal consultants for your companies and departments. And I think reselling this back to your organization is actually a great win. I think in this day and age where most organizations have a minimum of 2, if not 3 or 4 BI tools, I think looking at business objects the way it is at the moment and really reselling some of the new features and look and feel is a great win, and we found it extremely successful. So we, just to give an example, we're working with one particular organization who has been looking at a couple of tools, and then one of the departments went and procured this other tool. And I think what we've really shown as part of this go live roadshow was that there was no need for them to procure that. It was just they didn't have enough knowledge on what 4.3 can actually do. So do actually keep that in mind. And I think it's a really powerful way of actually doing it. I'll put in assumptions and dependencies. I think the main reason I've got this in there, I think after doing this for quite a few years, just make sure that, things are, I can see a couple of names who I've worked with from a server perspective. And I guess this is trying to make sure that, everything is supported and up to date from your environment. Make sure the right elements of the software are there. The prerequisites. A lot of people have gone down this route where they've installed the software and a few things haven't worked, and I would say being involved with this world for a long time, 9 or 10 times, it's always to do with the prerequisites that have not been met correctly. Backups of the existing environment, especially when you're looking at testing and you're looking at old versus new, do keep backups of prod and development, but also think of lifecycle management for the future as well as auditing if it's something you're not doing. There are very, very powerful metadata options that come as part of this and definitely should be used. And And then access to current and proposed environments, that has to be available. And I think this is where sometimes people don't give access, so your end users can actually almost see the differences as well. And that seems to have worked very well. Finally, license keys, that's an obvious one, but it's come across a few times. Make sure you're correct license. And look at what databases are going to be created for your actual databases as well. And
David, actually, sorry, can I just ask a quick question? One question. So, does it make any difference? If I imagine quite a few people will be thinking about, in general, moving to cloud. Does it make any difference for the purposes of what we're looking at here, whether a new environment would be cloud-based if people are used to being on-premise at the moment?
Absolutely, and I think so we've had a couple of customers at the moment who are effectively going through a journey out to the cloud. And the key thing is the same methodology maps to the cloud. The main things is that the main differences are keeping in mind some of the cloud integrations. For example, Salesforce has become very prevalent in a lot of organizations. And now you have an option of reporting on Salesforce or actually using the universe to connect directly to it. So it's kind of those integration elements are the main things to keep in mind, as well as authentication between cloud to cloud areas. But in terms of the methodology and the process, that's pretty much identical. It's just making sure you keep an eye on some of the other cloud tech that's out there.
Right. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Right, and I think that is over to Paul. Have you got access to that, Paul?
Not just yet.
Okay.
Okay, now I do.
Brilliant.
Okay, hello everyone. I hope you can see my screen. My 19 height. The weather in Leo we're going to do, and cloudy and about Celsius. It came right out of all this by doing in fees. But Infosol has a partner of business objects and now SAP for 24 years, and as such we have really grown involved over the years. We are incredibly skilled and passionate about the business objects product suite, and we have continued to promote it throughout the time. We still think it is the best BI solution out there in the marketplace today. And in addition to that, we have built add-on solutions for it as well, in order to assist people to be able to get the absolute maximum usage and investment out of business objects. So with that said, I'm going to talk a little bit about one of these solutions, Infoburst, which is a platform for the automated scheduling, bursting, grouping, and distribution of business objects and other BI content, and then hand over to Hazel Raison from Hermes, who's going to actually show a case study, since Hermes have been using this product for a while now. So basically what Infoburst is all about is providing business intelligence to the masses. While we can log in to tools like business objects and run ad hoc queries and do analysis and so forth, the majority of business intelligence that is distributed out there today is what we call push. And that means that we are pushing content out to people, and that might be a report, it might be something on a phone or a mobile device, but we are pushing a lot of content out there. So rather than people come and get the information and interact with it. We push it out to them so they can quickly see what they need to see, take appropriate action, and move on with their job. And that's why we call it BI for the masses. So this allows us to be able to do a lot of different things. We can run a report for an entire organization and then very intelligently split it by organization. So that organization, only gets the information that they actually need. And then we could split it again, right, by department. And then we could split it again, right, by individual. So that again, we can make sure that only people receive the information that they need and not necessarily everybody else's information. At the same time, there are people within the organization, within the hierarchy, that do need to see the information for lots of different groups. And so we have the ability to regroup, right, and recombine that content and push that out to people as well. So this works with all business objects content, with web intelligence, with Crystal reports. It also works with Microsoft reporting services. It works with Tableau, and it works with straight SQL queries, so that you can actually run a SQL query and split that into different content and regroup and push that out to people as well. And as I mentioned, we can do what we call this single pass bursting capability, so that instead of sending, right, a report to everybody, we can actually send pieces of reports to people as well. Also, the format is very important. The two most popular formats in use today out there are PDF and Excel, and those are the formats that most organizations seem to want to push out there. PDF for its ability to be able to print, and Excel for its ability to do almost everything, because the world seems to run on Excel today. We also have a lot of very important scheduling capabilities, so that you can schedule not just on time, but also on event as well. So before I get into the main functionalities, I'm going to ask Anna Laura to pull up a poll, a quick poll, to make sure you're all engaged here, and ask you what you're using today for doing your distribution. So Anna Laura, if you could bring up that first poll, please.
Yes, so here's the poll. What are you currently using for business objects scheduling and publishing needs today? Please select one: business objects, built-in scheduling/publishing, Infoburst, other third-party tool, own homegrown solution, or no real scheduling and publishing needs. So we'll give everyone a few seconds to answer that, and then we'll display the results. All right, just a couple more seconds, and then I will be closing the poll. All right, so here are the results.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Anna Laura. That's really interesting as well. It says about 64% of you are actually using the built-in scheduling and publishing in business objects, and about 21% are using Infoburst. And so that makes up the majority. About 14% of you are not doing any real scheduling or publishing, or don't have any real scheduling and publishing needs at this time. So quite interesting. And a lot of people do use the built-in scheduling and publishing capabilities of business objects, which is good. Infoburst kind of takes that to a whole new level. So here is a quick overview of what Infoburst actually does. So as you can see, we can take all types of different content from business objects, from Microsoft, from queries, and from Tableau. We can burst it, either multi-pass bursting or single pass bursting, and we can publish that content to a variety of different content types. So as I mentioned, PDF and Excel are the most popular, but we can also put it into a PNG picture format, which is very useful for distribution and viewing on mobile devices. We can also send it in a text or HTML format and publish it to a website. And as you can see for the delivery destinations, sky's the limit there. We can distribute to commodity portals like SharePoint. We can send to secure FTP sites. We can do amazing things with email, where we can encrypt the information as well as zip and compress it as well before we distribute it and combine it together into a group format. We can send to FTP sites. We can even send to printers or fax machines if that's a requirement as well. The content grouping is a very, very powerful and popular. It allows you to take different reports to the same input. So we could take, say, 7 different parts from 7 different reports and publish them into a single PDF and put them in any order we wish. What's interesting is we can do this with different BI content, take part of a report and part of a web intelligence report and part of a Tableau report, and we could stitch them all back together into a single PDF output and distribute that to individuals. And so for people who run in these mixed or coexisting BI environments today, particularly things like business objects and Tableau, this could become very, very interesting to combine that content together. Infoburst is also very, very powerful for its auditing and logging capabilities. And so it has an activity log that you can actually monitor real time and go back and look at the history of that. It can automatically alert you if something goes wrong, if somebody doesn't receive a report. We have also a delivery log, so you can actually prove that an output was actually delivered to a particular destination. And it has a full-blown audit log, so you can see who did what when. And it can take action based upon whether the schedule and burst completes successfully or not successfully, where it can trigger other jobs, other activities to run. And another really key feature is its ability to access databases. So we can actually cause schedules to run based upon the result of a SQL statement. So only if this value in this field in the database is within this range should we start the job. Very, very useful for the purposes of causing jobs to run after ETL roads have finished and so forth, but also a variety of other types of dependencies can be created this way. And we can also use this feature for distribution purposes as well, so that we can actually go to a database table and we can execute a SQL query against that and say, find me only managers within the London area and pull out their email addresses and only send this part of the report to them. And so we can use this capability in there as well. So with that said, I think the best way to show you just how cool and amazing this solution is to hand over to an actual customer there in the UK who is using it today. And so I'd like to introduce Hazel Raison from Hermes, who is going to run over a very interesting case study as to how they use Infoburst today. So with that said, we'll hand over to Hazel. So if you could give control to Hazel, please, that'll be great.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me. I'm hoping that most of you will have heard of Hermes, and we're quite well known for what we do, delivering parcels across the country and internationally. So to give you an idea of what's going to be in the session, there's millions of parcels depending on Hermes to get the parcels delivered safely and on time all year round. We have millions of parcels flowing through our network of hubs, depots, sub-depots on a daily basis, and we've got thousands of couriers and parcel shops to coordinate to actually get those parcels to the end customer. And it's a big challenge to make sure that our operational issues are identified and addressed as soon as possible to make sure those parcels flow smoothly and we keep those customers happy. And it's probably more relevant right now. There's so many people who are sat at home ordering essential items who need to get those products. We're actually as busy as we are in the run up to Christmas at the moment. And so the rest of the presentation is about how we've used Infoburst to make sure that we stay GDPR compliant as well, but that the reporting is streamlined so we're able to reduce the number of reports we need to run and make sure those get delivered in a timely and efficient manner to help that operational issues be identified as early as possible. So a little bit of an overview about Hermes, some of it you might already be aware of. We've got a big delivery network in the UK. We've got 3 big hubs, 27 depots, 550 plus sub-depots. And then obviously we've got, I think it's about 16,000 couriers and about 4,500 parcel shops. And what are we known for? Well, most people say that we're known for our value. We have quite low entry parcel pricing, and the idea is that we're keeping our costs low but delivering a premium service. In terms of scale, we're the 2nd biggest network in the UK behind the Royal Mail, but we don't just deliver in the UK, we deliver internationally as well. We provide a convenient service. We offer 7-day delivery. We have a really high first-time delivery success rate. We'll attempt to deliver parcels 3 times as standard. And we have the option of having parcels delivered to parcel shops for the customer's convenience. We also have the personal touch. We employ local couriers. We encourage them to develop their own rounds to get to know their customers. We've issued the option for couriers to put their own photograph and a bit of information about themselves, so that when the customer gets an email to tell them that the courier is going to deliver their parcel that day, they can actually see who's going to come to their house and know a little bit about them. The culture at Hermes is very friendly and personal, and all our clients have dedicated account managers. But a lot of these things that we're known for, they require a lot of reporting behind them. So for example, having the ability to put your photo if you're a courier, that then needs reporting. We need to know how many couriers are doing that and whether it has an effect on the customer satisfaction, whether it improves the delivery success. So some of our clients, our main offering is historically for clothing companies. Next have been a long-term client of ours, but we're adding more and more clients all the time. And with that, there's a bigger requirement for reporting. We're not just sending reports to more clients, we have more requirements because we have to have different processes for different types of products. And particularly at the moment, we're moving into doing some fresh food deliveries. And again, we need the reporting to show whether our current processes are suitable for that, if there's any issues with it, so that it can be acted on really, really quickly and keep that customer confidence that we can deliver their parcels really, really well. And over the last 3 years, we've invested £100 million. That's adding some new hubs, improving the depots, bringing further automation to the network. We've invested in our courier network, and we've invested a lot in our IT functionality. And all that has had effects on the reporting. It's added more reporting requirements. It's created more instances of reports because we have a bigger network to split our reports by. And over the next 3 years, we're investing another £140 million. That's in route optimization, data and digital transform, adding extra tiers in our depots and rugby, and more investment in our couriers and contractor network. We like to keep on top of what our customers want. That's one of the big things that we try and invest in to improve our customer satisfaction. And all of that means that we're adding more and more reports to our business objects suite. And as we add more clients, we have to have more instances because each client wants their own report. Each depot needs a report that's specific to them. So a little bit of background as to why we started looking at our scheduling options. We had a few challenges, and this came really to the forefront when GDPR regulations were coming in, because a lot of our reporting was being sent by email, both to internal customers, but also to external clients. And some of those reports contain sensitive data. In addition, we couldn't really prioritize our scheduled reports very well. The native schedule manager didn't allow for us to easily set the operational priority reports before any of the historical reporting. At Hermes, we have 4 batches of data loads per day, and some of the historical reporting wasn't really a priority on the day itself, but we didn't have any way of ensuring that that didn't run until the operational reporting had run. And due to the number of clients and the number of depots we have, we were running over 10,000 instances of reports on a daily basis. We had about 1,000 actual reports, but because of having to run them for different clients and different depots, that was creating 10,000 instances. To start our reports running, we had to drop files onto an FTP server. And so we were reliant on that process not having any network issues. And the solution we came up with was to use Infoburst. And why did we choose Infoburst? Well, the main reason that we chose Infoburst was because the business objects publications didn't allow us to use macros to create dynamic file paths based on our clients and customers. So we had tried to reduce the number of instances running by using business objects publications, but we were very limited in how many reports we could convert to business objects publications, because we want to split by client, but we don't want to deliver every client's file to one location. We would have then had to have some other process that then took those files and split them out into a location for each client, whereas Infoburst allowed us to create a dynamic file path. And so we were able to deliver the reports to an SFTP server based on the client name. And then each client is able to log in via a portal and get their reporting from that SFTP server. And that also helped us stay GDPR compliant. It reduced the number of emails we were sending. It also gave us greater scheduling functionality. Infoburst allowed us to put separate bursts in for the different types of reports that we had. So our really important time-sensitive operational reporting, we could put into one burst and make sure that that burst ran first, and the other reporting would run off the back of that. And that really, really helps us, especially at peak times. So in the run up to Christmas and with the volume we're seeing at the moment, it allows us to make sure that we focus on the reporting that's going to bring a big operational benefit and make sure that the parcels still get delivered, rather than some of the historic reporting, which is less of a priority to run each day. And we already had some in-house expertise for Infoburst. This meant that there was not a lot of training cost, and it was easy enough to set up Infoburst. We were also able to train up our BI team to do a lot of the changes themselves, and allow us to free up time to do more development work for them. Our event options were much more flexible. So rather than relying on files being dropped to trigger the reporting, we were able to write records to a database, which again gave us some more options for how we can set off batches of reports. We could set up more customized events. And we were able to group the content functionality. So where we have some clients, we have some small businesses like eBay sellers, little independent retailers who benefit from discounted rates from Hermes, but don't have big IT functions in order to fully integrate with our corporate systems. And for those clients, they weren't able to access the SFTP portal. They didn't have the IT functionality at their end. And so we were limited to still emailing out their reporting, but rather than them receive a high number of emails with all their reports individually, we were able to send them one email with all their reporting combined. And how do we measure the success of implementing Infoburst? Well, the main measure of success was that we managed to reduce the number of reports that we're running. We used the single pass burst functionality, and that massively reduced the amount of reports that were hitting the database at the same time. So we reduced the contention on the database. That allowed the reports to run faster. And additionally, because we were running one report and then splitting the data out, that reduced the time that the report was taking in the first place. So it made the SQL code a lot more efficient to actually run on the database. And on top of that, there was no contention. We were no longer sending out reports with sensitive data via email. We were able to send them to secure network locations, and that's helped us remain GDPR compliant. We're now using database queries to trigger reports to run rather than files. That's reduced the problem of any network issues affecting the file drop and stopping the reports being generated on time. And so we're ensuring that we deliver the key reports first, on time, every time. We're able to prioritize those reports, particularly in peak. If we do have masses of data, we can hold back a lot of the reporting that we need to allow the really, really important ones to run first. So the key takeaways: we're continuing to deliver reports to clients and key stakeholders, but we're doing it via secure channels that ensure the business remains GDPR compliant. We're using the single pass burst so that the database refreshes the data once rather than multiple times and then distributes efficiently. And we're utilising the scheduling capability to run priority reports over the non-priority reports, especially during peak when our data volumes can double and possibly even triple. And so I'll go to any questions.
Actually, Hazel, can I ask one? It's also, so thanks for outlining some of the benefits there. It's always a tricky question, this, but you mentioned there's been quite a big investment made in your IT systems and reporting, and you talked about Infoburst. Have you been able to quantify any of the benefits you outlined? Have there been any particular cost savings or retained customers as a result?
Yeah, we've definitely helped retain customers. It's allowed us to it's also allowed us to save money with the on-call support system. So due to the times that our data loads run, it's a lot of them are overnight. And what we have is we have a level 1 support team who previously would have to log into business objects multiple times to check the instance manager to see when reports had finished running and whether there were any failures. They no longer have to log in repeatedly. They can get on with other work, and we've set up alerting on our bursts so that if a schedule fails for whatever reason, they get an email. So there's no need for them to be constantly logging in. They're now getting an email. Because it's been simple to use, we've been able to implement processes so that they can attempt to rerun those reports. So if it's just been a slight network issue that meant a file couldn't write to a network, they can rerun it. There's no need to call out people on the business objects team. So we're saving a lot in the call out costs. A lot of that is now handled by the level 1 support team that we're getting paid to be on support overnight for various systems, but it's also freed up their time to do work on other systems as well.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I wanted to do our second poll as well, because at the beginning I had mentioned about how people are using multiple BI tools now as well. So Anna Laura, if you could bring up the second poll.
All right, let's see. So the poll asks, which other BI tools do you use alongside business objects in your organization? Tableau, Power BI, SAC, Click or other BI tools, or none? All right, just a few more seconds before I close out the poll. All right, here are the results.
That's pretty interesting. So about 54% using Tableau with business objects, about 15% using Power BI, nobody using SAC at this time, about 23% using Click or other BI tools. So this is quite fascinating to us, being based here in the United States. We see about 45% of business objects customers here in the US using Tableau and around 10% using Power BI. Not as many using Click and other BI tools, but you know, this is really quite close to what we would see here in North America as well. So that's great. Hazel, I can't thank you enough for you know, explaining how Hermes uses Infoburst, and obviously, as you mentioned, with the COVID-19 situation going on right now, you're just as busy as you are at Christmas time. So there's a lot of things happening. Have you noticed a particular shift in your business in terms of emphasis, or is it you know, business as usual during this pandemic right now?
I think a lot of it is business as usual because we are used to kind of handling that volume in the run up to Christmas. Where it's kind of more important at the moment is we know there's a lot of people isolating. So on a day-by-day basis, the couriers that are available, the staff in the depots and things, that's where the operations have to really jump on those issues, and that's where the reporting coming out first thing is really important to them.
Great. Jefferson, I think there was another question.
Sorry for the quiet. Yes, I think it was just around the ease of implementation. Have you been directly involved in the implementation, and would you like to comment on that?
Yes. No. So our business objects is all cloud-based, and again, our Infoburst solution went onto a server that was cloud-based as well. So there was some difficulty in setting up mostly the cloud connections on the Hermes side. once the servers were actually set up, installing Infoburst on them and setting up the connections for the reporting was really straightforward. We're looking at upgrading again to the latest version fairly soon, and we know that that's a really quick job. We've done a couple of upgrades, I think, in the past, but the actual setup is really straightforward.
Okay.
Thank you. I think, and sorry, there is one more actually. I think, which is the question is: it says if a burst is failed for say 3 out of 50 parameters, it sounds quite specific. I think maybe this is a question for Paul. It says currently we do not have specific option for running only those failed bursts. He said, is that functionality planned to be launched in any new upcoming release?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, there was a webinar yesterday that showed that very scenario. So the next build of Infoburst is a build 239, which will be released in about 2 weeks' time. And it has the new built-in HTML5 UI in a beta format. And that new UI handles those recovery situations that that's being described there, so that you can very quickly identify which burst fails, which parts of the burst failed, and rerun just those parts. So I can send you a link to that that webinar after this event today, so that you can take a look at that and see how that will work in the new release. But great question, thank you.
Great, thank you. So what I might say is that for the person who raised that, at the end of the webinar, we'll have a contact email address. If you wouldn't mind just dropping a line to us at that email address, we can make sure you get the correct details and we can get that addressed for you. Okay. Thanks for that question. So I think we're over to Gregory next, aren't we, Hazel?
Yeah.
Great. So I'd like to introduce Gregory Botticchio from SAP France. I've known Gregory for many, many years, and he is currently with the product management team based at SAP France in Paris, where he is very much focused on web intelligence. And he has been jointly responsible for not just the ongoing success of web intelligence, but business objects in general. And, you know, he continues to promote the solution and is one of the main reasons why it continues to be the most widely used BI suite in the world today. So with that, let me hand over to Gregory.
Yes, hello everyone. Do you hear me?
We do.
We do. Thanks a lot, Paul. Thanks a lot. Welcome everyone. So thanks for the introduction. So yes, my name is Gregory Botticchio. I'm based in Paris. I'm French, reason why I have a very strong French accent, and I'm going to share with you what you can expect in the next SAP Business Object BI 4.3. Before to move on, the legal disclaimer, because the things I'm going to share with you are not yet available publicly. I mean that the BI 4.3 is still under development. We continue to add things in order to finish this release for this year, and things can happen, meaning that you might have sometimes to take the decision to remove some functionalities that you were planning to deliver. My very first message, Paul mentioned it during the previously into the poll. You might have heard a lot about SAP Analytics Cloud, which is a cloud solution that you are eagerly promoting since many years now. But at the same time, I would like to tell you that SAP is committed to continue to invest into the on-premise BI suite, and the BI 4.3 is the clue that you can continue to run your system on-premise using the business objects technology. The 4.3 is here for you. Okay, what can you expect inside the BI 4.3? We work on three pillars. I'm not going to show everything today. I think I just have 20 minutes, if I'm still correct. Let me put my timer. Yes, 20 minutes to update you on the content. I will focus on on one of these pillars. But let's go one by one. The first pillar, hybrid. Inside the BI 4.3, we are creating bridges between SAP Analytics Cloud and your on-premise content. This is true for your users. This is true for your content. This is true for your universes that you might want to use with SAP Analytics Cloud. And this will also true for your web intelligence document. It will be possible, starting the BI 4.3, to reuse the content of your web 4.3 document with SAP Analytics Cloud. So there is many things inside the hybrid pillar. The thing number three, the pillar number three, is enterprise readiness. This is, I would say, all the cumulative things you can expect as part of, for example, the BI platform, or to install smoothly the BI platform for the tree, or to execute it smoothly, or to better audit what your end users are doing, or to support the latest version of the operating systems or the database available on the market. Yeah, these kind of things. Just to give you an example, because I don't think I will have the opportunity to show it to you today. For example, for the database, with the BI 4.3, we will fully support Snowflake and Google BigQuery with the universe, with the semantic layer, just to give you an example of the content things you can expect as part of the pillar number three. And we have the pillar in the middle, the new user experience, and I will focus on this today. By user experience, I mean brand new interfaces for all your end users. And I think a demo will speak better than slides, so let's move on to the demo. Do you continue to see my screen? I hope so.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so let me log in inside the BI 4.3 and show you what you will get. So just to let you know, this is your new BI Launchpad. We call it the BI Theory Launchpad, but starting for the tree, it will be your new BI Launchpad. Just to be clear, you are not going to get the classic BI 4.2 Launchpad that you are all using today. This Launchpad will be the one and only. It will replace the previous one, so the BI Classic Launchpad, the one that you have today. It has been completely revamped. It's modern. It has been simplified, and it is using something that you have created at SAP. We call this the Fiori style, which is common across all the SAP software now. Despite this new look and feel and the new interface, I would like to be clear, only the interfaces are new. Behind the scene, all your backend, all your deployment, all your security settings, all the authorizations you have created and that you have spent, I would say, months to develop remain exactly the same. Only the interfaces are new. And with these new interfaces, it's just going to reuse what you have to put in place. Just to be even more clear, to go, for example, from 4.2 to 4.3 is just an update for you. It is as if you have to install a new service pack. So now let me go through the new interface. So we have used tiles to display information. So the first ribbon of tiles concerns, for example, all the documents I have access to. Right? Let's go back. I have all the instances that have been executed. Right? So this is all the schedulers and publication tasks. I have also all my categories. I don't have many categories into this test system. Maybe just one. Yeah, just one. I have my BI box, and I have something which is really classic, which is the folder. In fact, it is exactly what I would have in folder 2. My personal folder at the top here. with nothing in it, and the public folder, which corresponds to the corporate documents with the folder structures and all the authorization and security applied at this level, meaning that because I'm an admin, I can see all the folders, but if I have the right, for example, as a standard user to see one folder, I would see one folder only because that's what my IT has defined for me. If I go back, then there is some shortcut to access my favorite folders, my recently executed documents, the recently run, and my list of applications. What you see on the screen is you can customize it. To achieve that is quite easy. I just have to click here, go into settings, select page customization. You might want to remove this option, which is that I want to perform my own customization. You go in page customization and you show hide the items, the tiles, or the sections you would like to see or not to see when logging back into your new BI Launchpad. So it's just a matter to click and check, and to, if you do that, for example, if I remove application and the list of categories, the list of schedules, the recycle bin and the BI inbox. Yep. Let's click save. I've done some customization. If I do a simple logout and login, I will immediately see the result of my action. I can do it on an individual basis, or the IT can do it for all the end users, of course. So as you can see, I've removed some tiles. I can see all the document folders, and that's it. Yes, that's the first thing I wanted to show you. The new BI Fiori Launchpad. Now let's have a look at your favorite reporting tool, Web Intelligence. And let's open one web document. Which one am I going to open? Maybe, let's say this one, yes. So this is a Webby document created in 4.2, open into the new Webby 4.3 interface. As you can see, this is really light. Have still, well, this is not necessarily new for you, because starting the BI 4.2 SP4, you have provided as an option the ability to play and get yourself used to the new interfaces. This is the continuation of what we delivered in 4.2 SP4. It looks like the Webby interactive viewer, but in fact, this is the new Webby 4.3 view mode, where we have added some shortcuts such as the fit to page in one click, the ability to do zoom in, zoom out, etc. The new filter bar, where the end user will access all the filtering capabilities at its disposal. This includes the input control, such as this kind of input controls, the drill bar, the filter bar, the quick display, not the quick display, the element linking action, etc., etc., etc. We have tabs, back, the tabulation. The tabs are back into Webby 4.3. Pretty much nothing really new at this stage. This is the Webby at the view time. Maybe something that is worth to mention. This new Webby 4.3 interface has been created in HTML5 using also some Fiori style, so which means that it works on all modern devices, which has a touch screen. So, for example, if you want to play with your Webby document on a Microsoft Surface Pro, for example, you can, or an iPad tablet, it works also. Right, this is touch ready. Allow me to open the second Webby document because I'm going to display it and use it for the next part of my demo. Let's open this simple Webby document, just to give you a really example of it. This is a Webby, a very simple Webby document with 4 tiles at the top, 1 bar chart, and a very long table. A very long table. Yes, it looks like this in total. And what I would like to show you right now is maybe to enter the edit mode. So to enter the edit mode in Webby now, you just have to click on the bottom here, click edit, edit. And now you're going to be into the design mode of for your Web Intelligence documents. And here, everything is completely different to what you have in folder 2. Completely different in the sense that we have shuffled a little bit the different functionalities. So let me explain how the interfaces look like now. At the top, we have the menu bar with all the non-contextual action. You have the save and the redo, access the query, insert tables, insert chart, insert free cell or predefined cell. You can open the formula bar here. You can open the filter bar here and create some actions thanks to the new workflows. You can, of course, do a zoom in, zoom out at the design time, right? It's possible, of course. Let's make it like this. There we go. And go to the next page if you have additional page. On the left, sorry, on the right, we have two new side panels. The first one is the structure and objects. In the report structure, you can access easily elements or blocks existing on your Webby canvas. You can, if you have many blocks, you can access them immediately. And you might have noticed that when I select a specific blocks, I have some quick action at my disposal here. Below, sorry, I have my classic list of objects. This includes categories, cities, lines, which is the result of the different queries executed to get this Webby document. First new panel, because it's the My Objects panel. Then we have the Build panel. And the Build panel is completely new. And we have created this new Build panel in order really to simplify the creation of Web Intelligence documents for your end users. And in fact, one of the strong objectives we had for Webby 4.3 is really to simplify not only the interface, but also the workflows, and specifically the creation workflows. Because one of our objectives is really to give this new Webby 4.3 interface into the hands of your classic power end user. I mean that Webby in 4.3 is no longer a tool for the IT department. This is a tool for your classic end users. Thanks to this interface, we think your end users will be really comfortable to access the data. And once they get the data, they will be really comfortable in creating their own reports, their own analyses themselves, and not relying on the power user or on the IT department. And this build panel is really here to help to achieve that. For example, if I select a table, now I can see in one shot all the objects used to create this table. And it's really intuitive. For example, if I click on city, I think that if I click on this cross, the city objects, if I remove it from the build panel, will also remove from the table. And indeed, that's what is going to happen. If I click on the cross, the city objects is removed from the build panel, and it has been also removed from the table. And it works in the other way. If I select the lines and click on the cross, thanks to the quick action widget, of course, these objects will disappear immediately from my build panel and also from the table. And I can move on like this. But if I want to add it back, it's really easy. I just have to select category or lines, for example, and do a drag and drop either directly in the table or in the build panel. And guess what? The line objects will be added back at the right place into the table. And if I'm not happy with the place, I can intuitively move the objects versus one of the objects, and I will reorder my table. So really, the objective is really to simplify the creation of Web Intelligence in a really intuitive way. And same thing for the turn to. Previously, to do a turn to, you had to right click on the table and access the turn to. By the way, the right click is still available, and this possibility remains available here in Webby 4.3. But there is an easier way to achieve that. So let's clean a little bit the table by removing additional objects. For example, let's remove the category one. Let's remove discounts here. And let's keep these three measures, margin, cost sold, and then let's do a turn to. So I can do it by clicking on turn to here, or if I want, I can go into the turn to here and I have access to do it in an easy way. Just turn this into a bar chart, and I get a bar chart immediately. We did also additional improvement in the UI. For example, we have added some ensure for each block, make them more visible, which means that if you want to resize a block, this is easier now in Webby for the 3 compared to the previous version. We have simplified also the way to do formatting. Now everything is contextual, meaning that if I access the formatting part of the big panel, I will get access to only the formatting actions possible in the context of my selection. So, which means that if I select a table, here are all the formatting actions I can do on my bar chart. On the other end, if I select the bar chart, the formatting area will adapt to display only the actions I can perform on top of this column bar. And I can move on and move on and move on. So as you can see, the expectation is really to simplify the creation, the formatting of the Web Intelligence document. And you expect by, thanks to all these kind of improvements for the user interface, but also for the workflows, that your end users will be able to create their own reports, but also dashboards. Because one of the other things we did within the 4.3, we position Webby not only as an ad hoc query and interactive reporting tool, but also as a dashboarding tool now. Okay, now let me show you one of the things we have done also inside 4.3. Let's start the Web Intelligence interface. And let's have a look at the option I have now. So this is the step where you have to choose your data source. And there is one important new entry, Webby as a source. So starting 4.3, we have introduced a new concept that you have named the Web Intelligence Data Model. What is it? This is the ability for all your end users to reuse all the data existing in any Webby document to create new piece of information. What does it mean? In Webby, you have a lot of information. You have one query merged with a second query, merged with a third query. And the 3 queries might come from different data sources. I can have one query coming from Oracle, the second query coming from Excel, and the third query coming from, I don't know, SAP HANA, for example. They're all synchronized. This gives you a lot of objects. Plus, you have all the variables that you might have created to answer some specific business question. So now, this kind of information that you have used to create Webby document, reports, charts, tables, thanks to this new Webby data model concept, you will be able to select any Web Intelligence document. Let's open the Webby document. I've previously shown you the really simple one, this one. And by clicking on open, I will get access to all the objects available into this Webby document. So category, city, lines, state, margin, quantity sold, sales revenue, variables, and execute it to create a new Webby on top of the existing Web Intelligence data model. So this is quite straightforward. What the workflow I just show you involves the query panel. And by the way, the query panel that you are all using remain exactly the same. It has just been modernized using the Fury style again. So otherwise, it has exactly the same capabilities that you know today, right? And yes, in the case of I create a Webby document on top of a web data model. Today, when we deliver the 4.3, I would say the GA, the query panel is mandatory, but later on, for example, inside the Web Intelligence 4.3 size pack 1, you have the option to bypass the query panel, which means that when I will select a web document, all the objects available in it will appear automatically in my list of available objects here into the panel on the right without having to create a query. So this will also really drastically simplify the creation of web intelligence document by removing the need to create a query on top of a web data model. This is really powerful, right? Because every time I create a web document on top of web data model, we keep the things in synchronization, which means that if I update the original web data model, all the modification in it will be pushed in all the web documents it is used in. And a web data model can be scheduled, which is quite powerful, right? In this case, I can schedule a web data model and share it with my users so they can create their own analysis themselves in a complete autonomous way. Let me show you a last thing, and it will be the last thing I would like to show you as part of my demo. As part of the Web 4.3, you can also count of the partners and the ecosystem of web intelligence to create great things for you. For example, you have a partner called Need4Viz, and they have created visualization extension for Web 4.3, but also for Web 4.2. And they have created this kind of viz extension that you can create in your report to give more power and to your web intelligence documents. For example, they propose new web tiles. They propose you a scrollable table. Many end users have asked me to deliver that. They made it for you before me. New chart with nice look and feel when you select the chart. New way to do drill up, drill down in an interactive way and within a visual way, as you can see. They propose you sunburst like that, like this, sorry, right? Quite powerful. New way to transform a stack bar on the fly into a line bar if you want. And you do that without providing the design mode to the end user. You just do that at the view time, right? Quite powerful. New bubble chart when you can do a lasso selection, do a zoom in if you want to focus on some specific area here. And they even propose you the ability to include Google Maps on top of your web intelligence data, right? You can navigate in your Google Maps doing a zoom in really to look at a specific address. And to achieve that, you don't have to use latitude, longitude information. You can use fully qualified address, such as, if I use a French address, 35 Alsace Street, located in the city of Levallois-Perret. And yes, it will work. If you have this information in your database, and you can use it to create this Google map, and why not directly look at what you have directly in your shop by using Google Maps. That's incredible. I love it. And you can go back. Okay, so our partner delivering this kind of extended visualization is Need4Viz. It's quite easy, and it works for Web 4.3 and also for all your existing Web Intelligence 4.2. Okay, I hope I get you excited with the new Web 4.3. It was the end of my demo. Yes, I will mark a pause here, and maybe you might have some questions.
Thanks so much, Gregory. One I did want to ask actually was about the Webby as a data source function that you've just been showing, the feature that you've just been showing there. What are some of the main use cases that you had in mind, or you've had in mind when it was being developed?
Okay, the use case is really simple. Now you can divide the world. Let me show you one slide to better explain. Where is it? This one. This one. Thanks to you, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Now you can divide the world into, let's say, two populations. You have the business users or the power users that will create the queries, merge the queries, add custom information into your data, on top of it, so custom formulas, create a report, and at the same time validate the WebB data model, meaning that the role of the business or power users is to make sure that the data is relevant, the data are true. Once they have done that, they can share the WebB report, or they can simply share the WebB data model. And once they have done that, on the other end, you have all your classic end users that will be able to select the WebB data model. They don't have to create the data themselves. They don't have to query the data. They're going just to rely on the business user, on the power users, rely on the existing web intelligence document to get the data automatically. They don't have to use the query panel. Once again, the query panel is optional in the case of a WebB document created on top of the WebB data model. And they can design the report themselves, create their analysis themselves. So what you are proposing, thanks to the WebB data model, is to make your end user more autonomous. Really is to promote business intelligence into your company. I hope that answers the question.
That's awesome. Anna Laura, would it be possible to throw just those last two polls, since they're quite relevant to what Gregory has been talking about?
Yes. All right, here's the first poll. When are you likely to switch over to BI 4.3? In the first 6 months of its release, after the first couple of service packs have been released, not till at least 2022, or not sure. So I'll give everyone a few seconds to answer that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll and launch the results. So here are the results.
Caution, caution, caution. Only about 9% in the first 6 months, 45% after those first two service packs, and maybe 18% not till 2022, and 27% not sure. Interesting. What do you think of that, Gregory?
Yeah.
Yes, I was expecting kind of feedback specifically. I think for the 3GA, most of the time, yes, customers are waiting the first service pack, but not till at least 2022. Not sure. 27% is quite interesting as well. I didn't expect that.
Yes.
Yeah, challenging. Yes, I would say.
And so, could you throw up the other poll as well there, Anna Laura, please?
Just briefly while that's happening, Gregory, can I ask what is the general release date actually for 4.3?
Yes, I can answer. Yeah, the GA general availability for the BI 4.3 is June 2020, so in several weeks from now, and more precisely, the week of June 12.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so the second poll question is up, so I'll give everyone a few seconds to submit their answers. The question asked, do you like the design of the new BI 4.3 UI? Yes, very much, sort of, I need to try it out more. No, I prefer the existing UI, or not sure.
Okay, again, that's quite interesting. About 50% saying sort of they want to see more, try it out more. 20% definitely like it a lot. 20% not sure. And the good news there, Gregory, nobody says they prefer the existing UI.
Exactly.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe one important thing to mention for this poll is we heard it a lot. Moving from 4.2 to 4.3 or 4.1 to 4.3 will involve some change management for your end users. We don't want your end user to be lost. So for this, we are preparing some videos or some documentation that will help your end users, not only the power users, but also the classic end users, to adopt the new interface easily, right? Because they are really different. We made the changes for the best, we hope, but your end users, you will have to help them. You will have to train them. You will have to expand them. Where for example, where are their favorite actions, their favorite functions into the new interface. It's important to consider this change management step in the adoption of the BI 4.3.
Gregory, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Would you mind switching back just to back to David? To David's presentation for us. Great, thank you. So as I said, really, we aim to tackle most questions just as we're going through. I'm just going to have a final check in case there's any more last-minute ones that have come in. Not that I can see. So, I mean, really, so what we've done is we've put a contact email address on here in case there are any questions that come up to you, after the event's taken place. So by all means, do please drop us a line. I think just a couple of other things, really. I think one was when we ran the poll earlier, it was 54% of the audience also use Tableau. And I think one of the things I said at the start was about one of the things that we've been really impressed with about working with Infosol is that they have a capability to be able to reuse and take advantage of a lot of the investment that you already have in your SAP BI environment through Infoburst tab. So please, if that's something that's of interest to the more than half of you on this call, in terms of you have used Tableau as well as SAP, that even maybe this conversation just provoked a question in your mind, then please do drop us a line on that email address. We'd love to discuss that with you further. Otherwise, really, I think it just remains for me to say, look, thank you very much to our guest presenters, to Paul, to Hazel, and to Gregory. Thanks very much to you as well in terms of the audience for joining us today. And please do feel free to drop us a line afterwards. That brings the webinar to an end for today. So thank you very much for joining us.